Welcome back to the Easy Button Investor Podcast. Today I have my friend and previous guest. I was a guest on a show earlier today, Mr. Brandon Turner, out here in Maui at his, what would you call this?
We don't have a name for this yet. The garage. We're going to call it
the
the garage.
last one was the
for now.
sea shed.
Yeah, the old one was the sea shed. This is the garage, but I need like a name, like the guy garage. I don't know.
The interview chamber.
The interview chamber.
The interview chamber.
The prison.
And today, we don't do a lot of guest shows here. Today, we are going tactical into two things on Brandon's journey. And without further ado, we're going to get right into the show. So, welcome, Brandon. Thanks for coming on the Easy Button Investor Podcast. Glad to have you. We go back a couple years, but if you want to give people, it's not an interview style show. If you want to give people a elevator synopsis of who Brandon Turner is, go ahead.
All right, so the 30-second thing, I got into real estate when I was 21 years old, bought a house, bought some more houses, ended up buying 13,000 units, and did a podcast somewhere in there called Bigger Pockets, and now Better Life.
That was perfect.
I wrote some books too.
Beautiful. Okay, guys. So as you know on this show, we're really focused on tactical real estate information that you can take on a 15-minute drive to the office on the treadmill and apply to your business today. Two things we're going to talk about today. The first one is the power of building a boots-on-the-ground team to expedite your virtual operations. A lot of you guys listen to this podcast, if you're watching this, ask me a lot of questions about that. And then we're going to go in and talk about analyzing deals and Brandon's formula for why he thinks analyzing a deal a day is so important to you, doing consistent deals and being out there taking action. So let's start on the first one.
Okay.
Talk me through why you needed to build your boots on the ground team, how you did it, and why it was so impactful for your business.
Yeah, so I'll give you the quick 30-second backstory. I owned a 24-unit apartment complex where I lived. I worked on it every day. It's how I got financial freedom, like kind of level one. I could pay my bills. I bought this apartment. It was great for a number of years. I held it for 5 years. Then I sold it, and I had a 1031. I had about $200,000. I had to dump into something else. So I bought two different deals. I bought another 24-unit in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then I bought a mobile home park in Bangor, Maine. One of those deals went really, really well. I think we sold it for $1 million more than we bought it for years later and made cash flow along the way. The other one just was terrible, tons of time, tons of stress. I had to fly out there a couple of times and deal with it. It was just a constant drama, and that was the Cincinnati one. Now, why did the one in Cincinnati not work? Was it the market? No, markets are very similar. Was it the economy? No, same economy. Was it the demographics? No, same demographic. I mean, everything was almost the same. The only difference is that on the mobile home park in Bangor, Maine, which was actually a harder to deal with clientele, I had a partner on that one. You see, this guy Ryan Murdoch, who now he's one of the co-founders of Open Door Capital.
Where's he at now in the world?
Right now he owns a van. He lives in a van full time. He's the richest person in a van probably in America.
I don't know if there's anyone that enjoys just day-to-day life as much as
he just goes all in on stuff. And about a year ago, he bought a van. He's been traveling around the country. I think last I saw, he's in Belize right now, actually, or somewhere like that, like somewhere wild. Maybe not Belize, because it's on an island.
No, you could drive there.
Can you drive there?
Theoretically, okay. I mean, it'd be a dangerous drive.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. Anyway, he's somewhere down there in that area. But so Ryan emails me, like cold emails me basically. He's like, hey, I was at a meetup. I heard you mention at this meetup that you were looking for a mobile home park. I got a buddy who's selling his. It's probably not a good deal. Just giving you the lead. And so I was like, dude, I ran the numbers. I'm like, this is solid. I ain't buying this unless you partner with me because you know the market, you know mobile home parks. I don't know any of that. So Ryan and I partnered together, and that's why that deal went so well. Now, I partnered with him. I gave him part of the deal. I think it was originally 15% just for being like the boots on the ground. That is why that deal went well. It's because I had somebody there who knew the market, who knew the intricacies of dealing with that type of tenant.
How'd you land on 15%? One of the questions I get a lot
great
is
question.
Choosing someone to just walk properties for them, choosing someone to do showings for them if they're wholesaling. How did you land on a 15%?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a funny way I got to it, and it worked out. I basically said, like, I knew I was going to get into syndication at some point, and this is not a syndication, but I said, let's pretend it's a syndication. How would a syndication work? Typically, it's a 70-30 split between investors who put the money in and the general partners who run the deal. So I said, well, let's just pretend the same way. 30% for the general partners. Who's the general partners? Me and you, Ryan. So we'll split it 50-50, the general partnership. Then I said the other 70% will be based on how much money we bring in. So I brought some of the money. Ryan brought a little bit of money as well. And then we brought in another partner who brought in the rest of the money. So that's how we treated it like as if we were doing a syndication. That's how 15% worked out. And there's no right or wrong way to do it, but that worked out really well.
Was it a handshake deal?
We had a little more. Actually, this was actually really important. This is a good tactical tip. I'd never done this before, but Ryan insisted on it. He said, okay, I want to sit down with my attorney as we draft all this up and create an operating agreement. I was like, well, we can just pull one of those off the internet. He's like, no, I think we should do an attorney. So we did. It cost us maybe $400 for an hour of sitting with an attorney. And it was the three of us in the room, the three partners, and the attorney was on like a call. And for an hour, the attorney just peppered us with questions, stuff that I would never even think about. Like, what happens if one of you gets divorced? I don't know. Like, what happens if one of you dies? Well, I don't know. Well, what happens if you guys fight, you can't agree, but two of you agree? I don't know. So over the course of 1 hour, we talked through all, like, probably 50 different scenarios, and we just made decisions. And then he just wrote that up into an agreement, and then we had a really good operating agreement. So I would highly, highly recommend that hour of time, because you don't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah, I think it's important. That's tactical on the partnership side. A lot of people feel like, I'd say if I had to guess, 50% of people who get into real estate eventually have a partnership of some kind. And a lot of them are legal. A lot of them get into legal arguments later down the road. So that's a big tip, and I agree. Yeah. Every partnership now that I have, unless it's someone I've already previously done business with, even then is papered up the right way. Yeah. So what were his responsibilities as being boots on the ground for you down there with the property? Yep. What did you expect out of him?
Yeah, so he oversaw the property manager. So he wasn't necessarily the property manager. And this is where I think most people just screw up long distance real estate investing. They hire a property manager, which is fine. But let's be honest, there's very few good property managers in the country. Maybe none. Like let's be honest. There's probably no great property managers.
It's like data companies.
Yeah, exactly. They're all fine. Some of them are terrible. Some are fine. They do their best.
Or the worst.
So so when you're like I had property management in Cincinnati, Ohio. I had 5 of them by the time I sold that property. And just everyone just was like, because there's a layer between like vision and like being the entrepreneur, and then there's the tactical of like signing a lease. There's a layer in between that people don't think about. And that is the person who, like, for example, checks up on the property manager, makes sure they're actually doing the work, goes over there and they're like, why is there a pile of garbage by the front, by the dumpster? Nobody's grabbed this for 2 weeks. Because the property manager just does not care enough. They've got 5,000 other units. They don't care about your one property that much. So he was the guy who just gave a crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the give a crap role.
And do you think that's finding a person that's built with that way, where when they say yes, something they're going to commit, or do you think it's the 15% when you're incentivizing them to care about the deal? Because that's always everyone asks me, like, hey, if I'm hiring a property management, if I'm hiring a project manager for flips and I want to travel, how do I structure that? Do I find someone I think is a great person I'm going to pay a salary to, or do I incentivize them on how well the job goes so that they're making more of the project goes better? I lean that direction, but what do you think it was? And obviously, I know I probably was the first one to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's just a good dude. Yeah. I would rather, in a perfect world, not incentivize people to do things like based on performance. Like, even though performance pay makes a lot of sense, but there's a lot of data that suggests that it actually overall hurts a company and morale and long-term relationships. There's a great book by Daniel Pink, I think it is, called Drive. And it's all about like the negatives of performance-based pay. Anyway, so in a perfect world, I'd rather not. Now, if I would have asked Ryan for no money to do that same role, he would have executed the exact same way and been a rock star. Now, I'm not greedy, and so of course I gave him some percentage of the deal, and now he owns a piece of Open Door Capital and will make a ton of money from it. We own 13,000 units together. That said, I mean, he had a piece of it. He had ownership, and so that's really what I want. I want somebody to take ownership, because I'm 4,000 miles away, 5,000 miles away out here in Hawaii. I couldn't take ownership of that property. Now, could I have found a cheaper option that wasn't 15%? Sure, I could have found a kid out there, or an intern, or a buddy to go check up on it. But unless somebody has ownership, they don't typically have ownership. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I've never said that out loud, but I think unless they have ownership, it's hard for people to take ownership.
Well, that kind of is incentive-based pay.
And it kind of is, yeah. But I'm not even sure it's about the money. Like, it's like you could pay them the same amount, but if they don't have ownership of the deal, it's hard to take ownership in their head of the deal, to treat it like their own. Like, I want people to, like, this is a funny phrase, and I say it as a joke, but it's still funny. It's like, I want all my team members, all my employees, all my staff, everybody thinking about me in the shower, right? Like, when they're in the shower, I don't want them thinking about their problems.
Your problems.
I want them thinking about my problems. Yeah. I want them thinking about how to make the company better. Now, the only way to do that, to make people take that level of ownership where they actually care a lot about the company and not just a paycheck, is that's where either ownership or incentive-based pay does come in handy. Again, I think there's some downsides to it. You just got to be careful with it.
Being in Maui, we're recording this. If you had to do a flip
Yeah.
in Nebraska next
Yeah.
week, and you had to buy it, you had to operate it the right way.
Yeah.
And with how many deals you've ran remote, how would you structure the team around that flip? Because so many people that watch my content, they want to do wholesale deals or flips at other places because they live in LA and it's hard, they can't really get into the market there. They want to do a deal in Fresno. If you had to do that, how would you structure your team around that?
Such a great question. So first of all, I would look at what am I bringing to the table? Like what am I good at? I'm good at money right now. I can get financing. I have my own loan company. Like I've got cash in the bank. I can take care of the money issue entirely so somebody doesn't have to worry about that. Then I would want to find, and I know this goes different than the Ryan story I just said, but I like 50-50 whenever I can. I think it's just an easy thing. So I would start from a 50-50 basis and say, how do I make this a 50-50 make sense for both of us? So if I'm the money, so then I would probably say, okay, look, you do everything, but I'll take all the risk. The loan is in my name. If things go bad, it's on me. You get the upside but you have to do all the work. So that's how I would structure it. I'd find somebody who is really good at operations, who's flipped houses before, but the money is a hard thing for them. And it wouldn't be a brand newbie probably. It'd probably be somebody who's actually an experienced investor. And I'd be like, hey, let me just take the risk off the table here and like, let's just do a flip together. I'll bring this. And maybe that's not enough for 50-50. Okay, well, what else do they need? Oh, they also want to be well known on Instagram. Okay, well, I'll blow you up on Instagram. That sounds silly, but like that, maybe that's what they want, right? Yeah. And so we work into, if I can, I work into 50-50. I generally like that approach. That's not for everybody, but I like that because it's hard to argue against it. It's just like, oh yeah, that's what we do. And
you leave every decision around the operation of the deal to that person?
Yeah, pretty much. I would leave everything to him. Like you mentioned when you were on my show about, and I'm going to butcher the terminology you used, but like the hustler, the operator,
and the architect,
right? When I think of like the operator, like I don't want to be an operator. I simply want to be an architect in everything that I do. I don't want to be involved. I want to be Richard Branson, not Elon Musk.
Strategy and money.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to be. Yeah. Exactly. Strategy, money, great. Vision. I love that. I don't want to operate, so I'm going to find people who can operate. And the mistakes I've made in the past is I hire people who I like who aren't actually good operators. They're just people that I liked. And so that causes problems. And so you got to kind of find people that I like and are good operators, which is why I wouldn't necessarily go hire a newbie to flip a house with them my first deal, their first deal. I go find somebody who's already killing it, but they have a problem, and that is money. And I can come in and solve that problem, or Instagram followers.
Before we move on to the next topic, let's reverse that real quick.
Yeah.
You're back in, I think you lived in Aberdeen, Washington, right? You live in Aberdeen, Washington.
Yep.
You're trying to do deals in Snohomish County, Washington. So not a quick drive. You can't get up there in an afternoon. And now you're back to where you were. You don't have a lot of money.
Yep.
Be the other person in that scenario that's new into real estate, that doesn't have a lot of money, that wants to flip a house 3 hours away because it makes more sense for them. How would you go about that? Let's assume the deal's on the table and there's an opportunity there. How would you structure that? Who would you go to? How would you put that together to be virtual? Because you can go to a hard money company, but who's going to operate the deal 5-6 hours away?
Yeah. A couple thoughts there. One, there is immense value in just being the driver of a business, right? Mm-hmm. So even if I'm farther away, if I'm setting the KPIs and I'm setting the direction and I'm, again, like doing the work to call 10 different hard money lenders, and I can do a lot from far away. I need somebody local, boots on the ground then, like that partner. Mm-hmm. What is their job? They're going to have to be there to check up on the contractor. They're going to have to be there, maybe even make them like they're in charge of the contractor. They're in charge of the rehab entirely. Now, I can, again, find that person who lacks what I'm lacking. They're lacking direction, motivation, all that. They just want to be told they're good at contracting maybe. They're good at dealing with contractors. Great. Now I can partner with that person. So again, I'm like, what are my assets that I bring to the table? How do I find somebody who has the exact opposite puzzle piece of me? And then we try to bridge that gap together.
Now, the part we assumed there's a deal on the table. So that kind of segues us to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is we talked about earlier on your show about how to just when you're new, how to just get in the game. Yeah. And I think before the show you brought up a really valuable point of just analyze a property your day. Yeah. It kind of goes to my thing of just being on the phone with sellers for a couple hours a day. How did you come up with that, and how do you think most people can put that into practice, that underwrite one deal a day? Yeah. What does that look like to you if you were to explain that to someone? Yeah,
a couple thoughts there. One, so the reason I like the idea of like analyze or underwrite a deal a day is because it simplifies a lot of like the complexity around real estate. So like you just do that one thing. Like the rest of it you can build around that. For example, okay, I analyzed 10 deals. Well, now what? well, I guess I'm gonna have to make an offer. So then we can add on more later. But the habit I want people to get into is analyze a deal a day. It's like if somebody wants to lose weight, I'm like, just track your food. Just track your food that you eat every single day. Don't worry about anything else. Let's just track your food for a month. Get into that habit. You're naturally going to start losing weight just by tracking your food. Everyone does. When they track their food, they start eating healthier. And we can add on the diets and the keto and the workouts and the gym and the personal trainers, all that can come later. But let's first build the habit. Because at the end of the day, and this is the quote that I absolutely love, you get the results of what you repeatedly do. If you repeatedly track your food, you're gonna eat healthier. If you repeatedly go to the gym, you're gonna get stronger. If you repeatedly talk to sellers on the phone, you're gonna find motivation. If you continually analyze deals, you're going to get good deals that'll come across your desk. And if they don't, you're still analyzing deals. You're learning how to analyze better. And that's the kind of the second point I'll make here is not only is it about the habit and the identity that you build from that habit, the majority of people I know in the world, even existing real estate investors who are good, are terrible at analyzing deals. Really, really bad at underwriting. They just don't know how to do it. And they mess up stuff like CapEx or repairs and maintenance. They don't understand how insurance works. They don't understand how taxes go up when you buy a property sometimes in certain areas. And so people make mistakes. If you analyze 100 deals over the next 100 days, you're going to be so much better at knowing how to spot a good deal. It improves every other aspect of your business. And again, just when you're like, oh, what do I do today? Analyze a deal. Just analyze a deal. Keep it simple.
Yeah, I tell people, if you can't underwrite a single family house, because a lot of my audience are doing single family deals, in 3 to 5 minutes, you're not good enough at it.
I agree. Yeah,
and
you got to be able to
I was underwrite 3 deals. I'm like, you need to be underwritten so many. That's where you make your money.
Yes.
Right. One little thing that you find or see that someone else does, it can save you money or make you a lot more money. If you had to go back, I mean, you built a really big real estate empire now. If you had to go back to someone that's on their second or third deal, what is one thing you can extract from your journey? If someone asked you, hey, what's the most important thing that allowed you to build what you've built? Whether it's being thoughtful in your relationships, who you're building with, how you treat business partners, and you were going to someone that owns 2 fourplexes right now, but 10 years from now wants to own 200 fourplexes, and you could extrapolate one theme from what you've built and give it to that person, what would that be?
Can I give you 2?
You can give me cap it at 2.
The first one is become a quitter in everything you do. Try to get out of everything you're doing as fast as possible to get somebody else to do it for you.
Delegate,
in other words, But I once heard a billionaire say the secret to his success was being a quitter. And the interviewer was like, what do you mean? He's like, everything I do, I quit.
Is this, my father-in-law always says, de-skill yourself.
Yeah.
That's a crazy way to put it, but it's true.
I just want to get out of everything. So no matter what I'm doing, I hired my mother-in-law once to answer phone calls from tenants. That was probably the single biggest shift in my entire life, like business-wise, was hiring her for like $200 a month to answer phones. Because all of a sudden it freed me up to do the higher dollar per hour stuff. I'm always trying to get people to do the lower dollar per hour stuff so I can do slightly higher. And then I quit that. I get higher. So I'm always trying to do that. So that's number 1. And number 2 is, like I said, you get the results of what you repeatedly do. So like I started tracking everything in my life and just like all my business KPIs, my personal KPIs. I started tracking it. Did I do it? Did I not do it? How many dates do I want to go with my wife? How many days do I want to record my food every week? How many times do I want to go to the gym? How many times do I want to make an offer? All that. And how many times do I want to post on Instagram? How many times do I want to tell my wife I love her? Maybe not that specific, but that idea of tracking it makes you better at anything. And so like my entire world today, that's what I'm always teaching people is track your habits, track your actions, track your constraints, track your KPIs, track it all.
Once you have that data and you set that plan,
Yeah.
I think one of the things all entrepreneurs struggle with is to execute. It's good. It's easy when you're motivated to make the plan when you have the data, but the days where you feel sick, the days where you don't sleep well, the days that you just feel like the sky's falling, what helps you individually execute on those days? Because a lot of people, they watch a podcast, they get fired up, like I'm going to make the best plan, but then 7 days later, they sleep 2 hours and they feel like crap. How do you hold yourself to that level of execution?
Yeah, I'm a huge accountability nerd. So like I used to have accountability pods and groups, and those are good. I've had some really good ones over the years, some bad ones. Today I hire accountability coaches. So I have an accountability coach. I meet with him every single week. His name's Jason. And we talk every single week about my goals, my habits, my actions, my numbers. And I gamify it, so I have a percentage. And then he'll text me. And in fact, this is what we do at like the Better Life Tribe. We started by doing pods in the tribe. It's my nonprofit or a charity-driven mastermind. But we started just doing pods, but pods were really hard, like volunteers getting together on a call. Now we just do one-on-one coaching. It's like for under $1,000 a month, you get a coach every week. So I talk to this guy and he's like, all right, how are you doing? Hey, looks like this is the third, like this is actually a true story. He's He's like, this is the third week in a row that you've been under your target for your food intake. Where I said I want to eat, I call it food integrity. It means I ate the way that I wanted to eat. He's like, your goal is 6 days a week of food integrity, and this is the third week in a row of that. What are we going to do to make sure you keep on this week? And I was like, well, I mean, I'll just do it. He goes, no, that's not good enough. What are we going to do to make sure you do good this week? And I was like, he's like, what punishment can we put on you if you don't do it? And he's like, what's a bad food you don't like? And I was like, olives. He goes, all right, canned olives. And I'm like, all right, if I don't get 6 out of 6 this week, which is my goal, I will eat a whole can of olives. Guess what I did? 6 out of 6. Like, even when I didn't want to, I had a birthday party and I had all the things in the way of like, I didn't eat any crap at that birthday party, the kid's birthday party, because
You didn't want to touch the
I
olives.
didn't want to touch the olives. Yeah. That's extreme accountability, and I'm a huge, huge nerd for that.
Love it. Well, these are quick synopses, you guys. Couple practical things from today's episode you should absolutely take is how to build a virtual team, how to build partner. I think we actually kind of went into a segue we weren't planning on with the partnership side. I think is immensely valuable. A lot of you guys want to be in partnerships. Make sure you're intentional with those. And of course, Brandon's frames around business and operation, everything we just talked about is so powerful. So thank you for coming on, Brandon. One thing that I like to do on the end of my shows, I always tell people they're one deal away. We talked about that earlier. What is one frame for you? Not one thesis on how to grow the real estate company, but one thing you like to leave people with when you meet them for the first time that helps them go into their journey, continue to execute, and run towards their vision. I mean, one thing you did for me early on was that vivid vision exercise.
I love that. Yeah, vivid vision is such a great thing. Having a very clear picture of where you want to go in the future. Like, you can always correct course along the way, but have a very clear picture. I love that. I'll also take a riff off of your statement of you're only one deal away. I'm gonna add a twist to that. Is you're only one habit away, right? Like you one habit in your life. Like if your habit is analyzing a deal, if your habit is talking to a seller, if your habit is dating your wife, like you're one habit away from a completely different life 6 months down the road. So focus on the habits.
Love it. Well, you guys, as always, you can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to it. And Brandon, you can find Beardy Brandon on Instagram and everywhere else, YouTube, TikTok. I've seen you everywhere. So
everywhere.
Even Twitter. That's where I live a lot of the time. I see you on there now. So he's everywhere. He's stalking you.
I am.
And until next time, as I always say, you guys, you want to say it? You're only one deal away?
You're only one deal away.
There you go. You're only one deal away.